Hello, everybody, and once again, welcome back to Internet Traffic Kings. I'm the big Fabu, John Fondy, broadcasting to you from the campus of UNLV here in Las Vegas. And yep, Las Vegas is coming back slowly, and we'll talk about that a little bit more about the entire country and how it's reacting to everything that's basically going on out there. But the one thing that you can react to is we're going to give you some great information here on these shows. And we want to remind you that this show is not sponsor related. So it's kind of a gift from our executive producer, Kevin DiVincenzi. And you can go to internettraffickings.com, or you can give us a 5-star rating, kind of saying thank you on Apple Podcasts, as well as going to our YouTube channel. We've got Facebook going on and Spotify. And so it's really taken on a lot of steam now. And we've got a new kind of a new segment that we're going to kind of continue on here. But before we do that, we could not do this segment if it were not without the ClickFather, our executive producer, Kevin DiVincenzi. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing well, John. How you doing?
Well, doing well, thank you. I mean, it seems like every week we've got something new to talk about, and a lot of things that really are kind of good out there, but we also have to meld that with some challenging things, and that's part of the adaptability that we have to do. And we're going to help people adapt. We're going to help people reinvent themselves, and kind of prepare just in case something like this that should ever happen again. And what are you hearing in your neck of the woods with the internet guys out there?
It's all about adaptability. I mean, you know, the good thing about though is we've gotten a vast array of different guests. You know, everything from Amazon FBA to social media influencers to Google guys to Facebook guys. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's just being able to figure out what drives you and where you want to focus. A lot of internet guys are doing phenomenal right now, you know, and legally and ethically, and they're taking advantage of all the extra traffic out there. You know,
you brought up an interesting statistic in our last show talking about second quarter and fourth quarter and all that. Can you explain that again to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually looking for my show note on this, so I had it exact. And I don't know where it went.
I've got it here as well.
You have it. Go for it.
So the second quarter was historically not a particularly strong quarter for e-commerce during the crisis, before the crisis. But this year we saw online shopping just jumped and went crazy. Now compare that to fourth quarter, which typically is the best.
Right, exactly. So pretty much the same shopping trends that were happening in Q4 of 2019 were happening in Q2 of 2020. Because everybody was home, so they were shopping, and that's where you see the shift now. You know, obviously that's why Amazon's doing so well. Shopify has now partnered with Walmart. They just made an announcement to onboard a lot of their Shopify stores onto the Walmart platform, which is really interesting. So the way that works, John, is let's say you have a small store on Shopify, and Shopify is pretty much an e-commerce engine. So you would build your store on Shopify, okay? So say you were selling, you know, UNLV t-shirts and what have you. You would power it on Shopify. That would give you the whole infrastructure and everything else. Now partnering with Walmart, you have the potential to get your products and or services into Walmart's platform as well. So when you go to walmart.com, there will be some integration with Shopify with some of those products. So essentially you could get that product directly on Walmart's website through Shopify. So that's really interesting.
And you don't necessarily have to have the inventory that Walmart makes you have if you go direct to them.
Right, of course not, because you could even do a drop shipping deal for that matter. I mean, I haven't looked into all the terms and conditions, but I would imagine you could drop ship directly. You don't have to, you know, with Amazon's FBA, you have to have the product on hand with Amazon. So it's got to be in their warehouse. You pay to ship it, you pay to store it, and then so Amazon's bots can go pick your product and ship it under their brand. With this partnership with Walmart, I don't believe that's the case because they're using Shopify. So Shopify's got its own engines in there and its own fulfillment with Oberlo and some others. So I think it's just going to be a seamless way for you to just expand your product out.
Well, in our last episode, we threw some fastballs at you, and Shopify was one of the questions that we had out there. So, hey, would you mind taking a few more questions?
Go for it.
Okay, this is great. And by the way, you know, all this stuff Kevin doesn't know what I'm going to ask him, but he's been in the business for 24 years, and so he's probably heard it all. So we're going to pick his brain here a little bit in this segment that we call the Internet Game Show here as well. So I'll be the Alex Trebek here, and we'll fire this at you. This first question comes from Texas, okay? It's a big city, and we got a big question here, and we're actually going to talk about this a little bit more in the show. But Chris says he wants to hire influencers. What's the best way to attract those, and how do you compensate them?
The biggest thing is find an influencer that resonates with your brand. So if you're selling, hats, find someone that's already wearing hats, talking about hats in fashion, et cetera. We're working very closely with influencers, and us as an agency, the good brands that we're working with are sending us a VIP box. Like I just got one on Wednesday from My Green Fills, which is eco-friendly laundry detergent, hand sanitizer, things like that. But they sent me a whole box with all the different products, including, a little hand angel made by a deaf person and all these different little things. So I could really resonate with their product, which is great. So that would be my advice. Find the influencers that you like, whether it's you're going on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever it may be, connect with them directly and then get them your product and see if they like your product. If they like your product, then ask them to promote it, because people will go ahead.
So in other words, you would not, if you're selling dirt bikes, you wouldn't necessarily go to Kim Kardashian.
Right, exactly. And the challenge with a lot of these networks, and again, Matt Ferry, who will be on later, might counter what I'm saying and say, oh, well, there's these great networks where you can go and you can find influencers. You can. My challenge is, then it's just a name. Then it says John Fondy TV production. But I don't really get the chance to know John Fondy and see if what he's saying and what he's promoting resonates with my brand. So the way that we do it personally, we're constantly scouring YouTube and the other mediums, and we're watching these channels and saying, you know what, that would be great for this brand. Then we get the product in their hand. Then we help write them a script so that they're promoting the product properly. That's really the way to do it. It's not, people think influencer marketing is just somebody sending out a tweet or somebody sending out a promotion. That's not going to work the same way. Will it get sales? Sure. But is it going to get sales in a long term? No. So personally, I want something where the audience is loyal. So they already have the brand loyalty to that influencer, and then we incorporate the product. A lot of times even branding the influencer into the product. Like one of our attorney influencers that he's got about 140,000 followers on Facebook. When he goes live, he'll get about 1,000, 1,100 people watching him live at that moment. And then he'll cycle through in 24 hours, somewhere around 19 to 20,000 views. So basically the products that we have with him, it's one of them is a background search. So essentially what he's doing with the background search, he's doing a live background search on his screen while he's talking to his viewers. It totally resonates with the viewers because it's a crime talk channel. So they're talking about, crimes and what have you. So the viewers get involved in it. They go to the landing page, crimetalksearch.com. It's got his picture on it. It's got, his image. So he's got those loyal followers coming to it. And I can tell you, John, I mean, this is the advice I probably shouldn't be sharing because I shouldn't be giving out, but I will. We're seeing those conversions 9 to 10 times what we normally see. 9 to 10 times, literally, on those offers, because the people trust him, the people trust the brand, and he's explaining the brand, and it goes perfectly with his audience.
Well, third-party validation is some of the best validation that you can get, and certainly those influencers have already got those people there.
Sure.
One other question on that. Chris also wanted to know, how do you compensate these influencers?
That's a twofold question because it really depends on your business model. So if depending on your profit margin into a deal, depending on if you're willing to go negative on your first order, let's just say you had a subscription box. So a subscription box, meaning you're getting the product month over month. So we'll say, Blue Apron, right? The food company. So Blue Apron, they budget, we'll call it $150 to acquire a customer, the customer acquisition cost. Obviously, their first order is going to be less than $150. So they're going to lose money on their first order while paying the marketing fee. But they know the lifetime value, let's say they keep a customer for 7 months, the LTV, the lifetime value is $450. So they know that they can invest $150 to eventually get $450 out of the consumer out of the funnel for a lifetime. So when you're compensating, it really depends on what your goal is. If your goal is, if you have a clothing store and your goal is to get a sale, don't just worry about that sale of flip-flops that you're going to make $8 on. It's your return customer that what are they going to spend in their lifetime? And once you have those real numbers is where you can really come up with a real budgetary number. Does that
Okay,
make sense?
great. Yeah, it does. A good
Okay.
explanation. We're going to take one more question here, and
Sure.
this one comes all the way up to Alberta, Canada. So we're getting all over the
Canadians.
globe on these questions as well.
Yep.
And this comes from Tammy. And so what her question basically is the education lead generation space a good place to focus on to be an affiliate?
So we've personally been in the education space for over 15 years. Couple ways to look at that. If well, first of all, with COVID, it's totally different because you would need to focus just on online campuses. Most of the
Sure.
offline campuses are closed. That's the first thing. The second thing is I would niche it out. So we do education, but we do nursing careers, criminal justice careers, graphic designers, and we niche it out. My other advice would be to make sure you have something where you can do the creative and then you can post those leads in. Because anything that's ready-made out there, it's out of your control. So if I go to, University of Phoenix is now defunct, but let's just say University of Phoenix and I advertise their landing page, I don't know what filters are behind that.
Mhm.
So I can never really get a true metric because I don't know how they're scrubbing or what they're doing. But if I can control that flow and then post that lead into a school, a university, an affiliate network, whatever, at least then I can know where my conversion rate should be, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, it does. In fact,
Okay.
I think that's why we take some of these questions here. And you're a good sport. Thank you for
No
letting us
problem.
kind of
Keep 'em
throw
coming
stuff
anytime.
at you and stuff like that. So let's maybe see if we could look into the ClickFather crystal ball a little bit. And do you have any thoughts as we're changing on a daily basis here? Any thoughts on some of the direction that we're going to go in terms of internet marketing and building traffic and growing your business, and it might be a brand new business?
Well, they say it takes 30 days to make a habit, right? I think with this lockdown, the increase in traffic that we saw is going to be maintained for a long time. Because I think people are more dependent on the devices now. They're more dependent in the internet way of things in regards to ordering things, getting their entertainment. So I think that the higher traffic amounts are here to stay for quite some time. So it's really just providing services and things that have longevity. If you are providing a service, don't look for that one hit wonder of, how can I just make that sale? Pretty much what I was discussing previously. Look for a longer tail. Like how can I get a customer that I'm going to keep for a long time, have the loyalty, meet and exceed their expectations, and have that customer, because then you're building something. I think that's the key, is actually building, to building a business, is having customers that come in time after time after time. A grocery store runs, they say, on a 2 or 3% margin, right? But they do so on volume and based on the return customers. If a grocery store was just, saying every customer that walks in the door, we make 2% on, they lose their behind. But because they have that longevity coming in and the volume and all these different factors, that's how they're able to make it work. So my advice would be, don't go for the home run, play the long game, and a lot of the influencers out there, or the traffic guys, are doing that right now. Ryan Dice and, quite a few of these guys, even Tony Robbins, they're providing a lot of value right now. They're not selling anything. They're just providing courses and different type events just to teach people and to give. And the idea is, eventually they're going to earn that customer, but they're going to earn it right now by providing value. So it's just think of things of not just selling this widget right now online, but doing something a little bit longer term.
There's some crazy stuff that's going on in the sports world out there now, and it seems like it changes on a daily basis. And the way it's going right now, it's kind of almost starts to seem like everybody's going to suffer through this, as a fan, as a player, as a business owner, and everybody's trying to to work these deals, and it doesn't seem like anybody's actually working together on it. And I don't know how it's going to come out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I was very close to pulling the trigger on Raiders VVIP tickets, about a year ago, John.
Yeah.
They only have 500 seats, and they've got private dining and blah 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 blah. Anyway, it was a very large commitment. House money essentially, meaning money that you could easily buy a house with for these two site licenses or 2 seat licenses. My apologies. And then I did the math, and it didn't make sense. And now I'm really thanking myself that I didn't do it, because you don't know what's going to happen in the stadium world. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to do every other seat? What's going to happen? Like I said, the fall is going to be really interesting to see with the increased testing, if the infection rates are going to skyrocket. What do you do with these? And, and fanless sports is not really great. Right. I mean, part of, the excitement, especially when you get to playoffs and championship games, a big part of the excitement is hearing the fans roar, or boo or whatever, to just have that interaction, or even a live event. I mean, if you think about, you've been to basketball games before, John. If you go to a basketball game and it's half capacity, it's not the same than a full house, right? Like even, I went to many UNLV games, great crowd. But now imagine you remove half of that crowd. It's, it's half a voice in a sense. You know what I mean? It's not the same. The home field advantage is not the same in that scenario. And, we'll see.
Well, speaking of those Raider tickets and the stadium last week, they basically did the Royal Flush. And basically what that is they basically take and they flush all the toilets all at the same time, and that's how they determine whether or not the system is done. And that's a big indicator saying that the stadium is about ready to open back up again. And so we haven't got the rules yet of what's going to take place. And I think everybody's cautious. There's a new hotel here in town that just had a topping off party that's taking place this week. So, and then there's MGM put together their big new convention and event center as well. And all this stuff started before all this basically took place. I got to think there's some nervous people out there.
Yeah, I would think so. I think, commercial real estate, bad shape right now, just from having to attempt to collect rents from a lot of people that haven't been able to be open for 2 to 3 months. And I think that, the casino industry, they're saying, might take, 2 years to recover. And it's tough. I mean, when you think about the day, again, talking about Vegas, the day clubs and nightclubs not being open, all the events not being open. I mean, there's a lot less value there for a consumer. It's not the same fun, like, especially for the younger generation, I mean, yeah, I did just turn 30. But for the younger generation to go to Vegas, a lot of it was that, not the gambling, but all the ancillary products that came with that. And, and they spent great money, and it's a big part of the industry. The Cosmopolitan, their hotel makes more money than the casino. So their hotel, their day clubs, their nightclubs, again, this is pre-COVID. Yeah. But that hotel operation makes more money than the casino. So anybody that thinks that's a perfect example to tell you, if anybody thinks it's only the casinos, it's not. If you do it right, the whole experience is what makes the money. The restaurants, the clubs, the rooms. I mean, Cosmo and Wynn, get the highest rates for their rooms historically than anybody else, and they get them, right? It's always a packed house in those places, or was.
And we're going to let the dogs out of the green room, that is. And of course, we're talking about the big dog, Bennett Kelly.
Let the dogs out.
Woof, woof.
Thank you for the intro. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. By the way, if you want to get in touch with Bennett Kelly, you can get in touch with him at the internetlawcenter.net. And every week we've been talking about, Bennett, that big things are happening every week, and we're kind of bobbing and weaving on this. And you've got some interesting stuff to talk about, the things that happened as well to you and your group.
Yes, and in California, we're going to be ground zero on July 1. as the much talked about California Consumer Privacy Act goes into effect.
So that did not get
Excuse me, it went into effect on January 1, but on July 1, the Attorney General can begin enforcement of it, even though the regulations were just final regulations were just published last week. So
there is no extensions. That's clear.
There's no
There won't-
extension.
no
the ad
extensions.
industries
So-
asked for an extension. But here's the quirky part about the law. So Kevin, you've
Yep.
screwed up, Mr. Attorney General.
Never.
I send you. That's right. I send it to your competitor, and say, Mr. Competitor, you violated the law. They have 30 days to comply. So there's that element of it. So even if you get cited, they still have 30 days to comply. But if you are not sure whether or not you're covered by the law, there's the three main requirements. Do you have gross revenue in excess of 25 million? If you do, congratulations. But also,
I have a question though.
Sure.
Right there. Is that gross revenue of 25 million just in the state of California, or is that your whole business?
At this point, I would say this your whole business. Although there are some people who say it should only be the state of California. The AG's office has not clarified that. So
that means any of the sites that don't have, because I've seen it quite a bit, the CCPA disclaimers coming up. If they're under 25 million, they do not need to have that. Is that?
Well, there's three parts. That's part one.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And
marketers get right to, hey, I don't have to do it. Great. All right, let's go. Thanks so much.
The second thing is, do you purchase, receive, sell, or share the personal information of 50,000 or more consumer households or devices? And then the third is, do you derive 50% or more of your annual revenue from selling consumer personal information? And so those are the three thresholds.
Can we go back to number two? What was number two?
Sure.
Let's go back to, sorry, because this is a great education for me as well. So number two, could you repeat it again? Do you mind?
Purchases, receives, sells, or shares the personal information of 50,000 or more consumer households or devices.
So that would mean if somebody is in lead generation, and this is annual, correct? So if they're doing over 50,000, if they're collecting more than 50,000 leads annually, they would need to do this.
Yes.
Is that correct? So that's, call it 4,000 leads a month.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that's the threshold. And so that starting July 1 can be enforced. Now, here's the other thing. It's like Jason being back on Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
All this came about when a real estate developer with way too much money, Alistair McTaggart, qualified a ballot initiative a couple of years back to create the California Consumer Privacy Act. And ultimately, just as it was the deadline for withdrawing the ballot initiative was coming up, over a period of 7 days, they passed what is now the California Consumer Privacy Act, and he withdrew the ballot initiative. Well, you need, to get on the ballot for this election, you need about 600,000+ signatures. And McTaggart and his group have just submitted over 900,000 signatures to qualify a new privacy initiative for the fall ballot. And so it hasn't been, they have to go through the signatures. It hasn't been certified yet, but it very likely will. So we could have another round of privacy compliance after the November elections, depending on if it gets certified as being on the ballot and passes, privacy. Who votes no to privacy?
Right, of course.
The last time it was heavily favored to win, and this time I think it'd be heavily favored to win. So this is going to just keep getting more complex, and so stay tuned.
This is pretty complex already. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say, Bennett, now if you've done something wrong, is that retroactive from July all the way back to January? So could you get in trouble for something that you did in January or February now that this is going into effect?
Yeah, I'll give you a classic lawyer answer: yes and no. So yes, you can get a notice from the Attorney General that says you have 30 days to fix. for based on anything you did after January 1. But okay, that just means you have 30 days to fix, and hopefully by July 1, or hopefully within 30 days of that notice, you can fix it.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think everything's a little topsy-turvy, and it's almost like this is one more thing that we're kind of adding into the mix here. It almost seems like, I guess for some reason, they're just making it as hard as they possibly can to do business, not necessarily do business the right way.
Well, I mean, in their defense in California, we've been talking about privacy at the national level since the late 90s, since the internet age, and nothing's ever gotten done. So California has taken the lead and has actually implemented something. And did they get it all right? No. But at least one state has started to blaze that trail, and that's good for consumers, but we need to make sure we're doing it the right way. So I wouldn't be necessarily fault California for trying. I would definitely fault them for where they didn't necessarily get it right. But at the same time, there is, for California, and the other adjustment is the law AB 5, which redefines who's an employee versus an independent contractor. And that went into effect this year, and you're starting to see enforcement actions on those against. There's a big battle brewing with Lyft and Uber and DoorDash. And in fact, that's another ballot initiative. They're trying to overturn that law. And I believe they've qualified a ballot initiative in November that would exempt gig economy workers from the new law.
Well, have you been seeing a lot of fraud going out with all of these checks that are going out, and this stimulus stuff, and those type of things as well?
I've seen reports of it. I haven't really personally come across it myself. I know the FTC. Last show we talked about the FTC is cracking down on that somewhat. And anytime you have a lot of money at stake, there's going to be fraud attendant with it. And so I know that there's scams going on out there trying to. I think the one we talked about last week was diverting people to come get your check, and it was a used car sale.
Yeah, right.
And there's also a lot of frauds about COVID remedies and fake masks and stuff like that.
Hey, Kevin, going back to like the whole restaurant deal and stuff like that, I'm thinking maybe that we're going to see even more lawsuits that are going to come through for just different things that are just going to pound the restaurant industry. And you know a little bit about that as well. So
yeah, I think so. I mean, you're starting to see, I'm sure, Bennett, you're seeing, lawsuits against the insurance companies. Quite a few people are now suing them for not complying, but I'm sure there'll be consumer-initiated lawsuits as well.
But on that first point,
price
Kevin,
gouging and all the things. Yeah.
I started my career at a big firm in Washington, and at one point I was representing companies who had done environmental cleanups that had been ordered by the government in the 70s and 80s, and were trying to recover insurance policies from way back that didn't have any exclusions for pollution. And we were battling the likes of Lloyd's in London and some others. And a study was done that the insurance companies figured out it was cheaper not to pay, spend years litigating, and these aren't cheap law firms,
right?
And then settle for 30 cents on the dollar or whatever it was that they settled, rather than pay up front. And so all these, this, I'm sure people in Hartford and other insurance centers had to be going crazy when they saw this COVID thing happen, because of all their huge exposure on business interruption. And what they should be doing is also being smart, is selling a new product that covers this, because as we talked about earlier, business interruption sometimes requires some physical act, something that disrupts your business, a fire, damage to your software or equipment, and which this didn't, although some business interruption insurance is based on a government order. And if you have that, then you're covered. So I would, there's definitely going to be a lot of litigation there.
But you're right. It should have been from a marketer's standpoint. It would have been a great time to say, "Hey, we're launching this new product, and if this ever happens again, you're covered, and we're going to give you 6 months free. And and here's what it covers, and break it down." I think that would be really smart. I mean, a lot of the
Definitely
insurance
from goodwill.
carriers, a lot of the auto insurance carriers proactively did that, right? Back in March or
Someone
April.
told me, and again, I don't know auto insurance. Someone said it was great. You see those wonderful State Farm ads, but I think they're required to give the money back if the usage isn't there. So
it's possible, but they had a really good spin, though, right? They came out. They said, "Hey, you're not driving right now anyway, so we're giving you back whatever it is."
Exactly, like the airbags. When I don't know if you remember when they added airbags to cars.
I'm not as old as you, Bennett.
It was the Model T, and it's right after this. Yes. I just got back from World War One.
That's where you crank the motor and you blow into the airbag. I've seen videos of that.
Any event, there were ads about different car companies, each trying to outdo each other about how we're better on airbags. And the irony is that the industry fought it for 15 years, and only after they lost in the Supreme Court were the airbag requirements implemented. And so, but it was interesting once it finally was, we're the most pro airbag company you've ever seen. Right. So I think, I'm not sure about that on the auto industry, but I think there is some requirement that you refund the money if the mileage or something doesn't match.
Sure. So Bennett, wild stuff going on right now. We've got a big rally that's coming up, or that has taken place and stuff. That I'm just wondering, what have you heard about what's going on with that?
Well, from trying to stay away from the politics of it, from a legal perspective, if you signed up for this rally and imagine future rallies, there's this huge disclaimer that you waive, you acknowledge that there's risk associated with COVID, and you exempt them from any liability for any claims that you or your guests may have from if you event that you get COVID from this rally. And and I'm sure other businesses are going to try something similar.
They did, Bennett. Disneyland on their on their prospective reopening had a whole disclaimer where you're 100% liable. They're held harmless.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, the happiest place on earth, you can kill you.
Yeah.
But any event, the one issue, it comes up it varies by state law, but one thing you can't, a lot of times they won't enforce those type of waivers if for certain things, if it violates public policy, and that's uncertain, but that's going to be up to the courts. But the second thing where they can get you is if you're grossly negligent. So I suspect the happiest place on earth is going to implement some certain, social distancing and other requirements consistent with the CDC guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
What I've heard about this rally is that it's unclear whether they're not mandating people wear a mask, and it's 18,000 people,
Wow.
squeezed together in a very short, small area, which
Right.
isn't consistent with the CDC guidelines. So it could be that that's not enforceable. Also, there's a question of, if I go to the rally, I sign the waiver, but I give it to someone else, can that other person now sue the rally organizers because they didn't sign the waiver? And it is foreseeable that that person could, these are called super breeding, super spreading events type of thing. And so it's going to create a lot of legal issues. And unfortunately, any disaster does. But the disclaimer issue is something to think about, for any business. And I know in Capitol Hill, there's talk about giving businesses some protection from liability, because why would I reopen if I'm going to get this many clients and then this many lawsuits?
Something happened here last week. There was a big, I don't know if it was an MMA event or a boxing event that basically just before, 2 days before the fight was about to take place, the manager or the trainer came down and was diagnosed with COVID,
Wow.
which means they had to cancel the fight. So now not only is the kid who's being trained by that guy, but the opponent now loses all of that money because of that. Does that fall into play?
Well, I mean, first of all, I wonder if that is covered by, they must have insurance, right? In that circumstance,
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but yeah. And so I'm sure, if I'm the other fighter who was healthy, I'm sure the contract with the other side, each person represents that they're, ready, willing, able, that they're healthy, that they've taken steps to, I would guess that the contract may have clauses like that. I mean, that's going to be an issue. If you're going to, for example, now, if you're organizing a conference, when you have your speakers, assuming it's going to be a live conference, you need to have them make representations as to their ability, their health, and what measures they're taking. You got to think about a lot of things now in terms of those type of events.
I was going to say, speaking of that, should I go first, John?
Yes, you can.
Sure. Speaking of that, I mean, how long do you think these conferences are going to hold money for? Like, what do you think? My daughter's doing the Date with Destiny, Tony Robbins. It was rescheduled from March in San Jose because they said they can't do an event in San Jose. She was moved to Dallas in July. So they are going to do it, but they're doing it at half capacity.
Okay.
But what's going to happen with these other venues? What happens to the season ticket holders? I know MLB was already sued. The NBA ticket holders, any future events, and then even for our industry, Bennett, what happens to the leads cons, the traffic and conversion? I know they all put new dates on the board, and I think it's very irresponsible to put these new dates on the board because they don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think leads con is in September, which I think is highly unlikely in Vegas. At what point do they owe the industry the money back? Like, what point do they say?
If it doesn't happen in September, I would expect to see a lot of lawsuits saying we want our money back.
Yeah.
And
Right
the problem
now,
is I suspect a lot of them have arbitration clauses which are confidential, so you may not even hear about it. And,
yeah, but I think a lot of it also is just your reputation, right? A lot of the, not just our industry, Bennett, just the trade show is based on reputation. Like
right.
you go to a trade show, whether it's a TED Talk or whether it's one of your legal conferences, it's based on reputation. And if you feel that you were wronged, you're never going to go to that trade show again, I would think. So I think they have a very fine line to tread here on doing the right thing, or at least coming clean. Like, I understand, running a trade show, John, and I know you're trying to shut me up to go quickly. Running a trade show, there are costs and everything associated, but then come clean and say, hey, you know what, guys, nobody expected this, but here's what we're willing to do. We don't have the budget to give everybody their money back, but to sit there, and again, I won't name them, but one of these major conferences that I just did name is quoting everybody to the terms and conditions already, saying, hey, look at these terms and conditions, and and we're gonna redo it in September or December or whatever, which I think is just a terrible way to do things, because these people believed in them and believed in their conference and gave their hard-earned money, and a lot of them need that money right now.
But here's the issue for the organizer. Okay, you paid X, and I'm now going to go ahead and do the conference, but now under a COVID type atmosphere, I now need as much as 50% more space in order to be COVID compliant.
I get it.
So if I have a conference room that would seat, I was going to have 30 people, I now need a conference room that can seat 60 people, which means my costs have gone up. So am I better off canceling and giving the money back rather than trying to go through and not make any money?
Yeah, I don't know if the costs will go up, Bennett, because I think everybody is right now pivoting and shifting. So I think that they'll probably grant them the extra space given the environment that we're in. So in the future, you're probably right. You do have to plan for that. But at the current time, I don't know. Just personally, I see an issue with quoting terms and conditions at an unprecedented time like this, and not just being honest.
In addition, we talked a little bit about the new laws on employees versus independent contractors. And that's something you should give some thought to, because there have been enforcement actions on that. And that's something to be considered about. And then, just be vigilant in the workplace and try to figure out, monitor your employees. If you're still working remotely, make sure that that's working out. Make sure you're not losing trade secrets in the process. We've been at it now for 3 months. Try to do an assessment and see where you are, and see if you're working in a way that protects both the employees and your secrets. That's it.
Excellent. Kevin, again, as we're closing out the show now, something that we should know and something that we really need to know.
Yeah, I think I haven't mentioned this before, but the CARES Act, understand that as a business, right? There are a lot of resources out there. Understand what the CARES Act is and what resources are available to you for small businesses. There's SBA loans that are fast tracked right now, which help people out. Everybody hears about the PPP, but that's only one segment of what's available right now. So definitely take a look at the different resources on our page and the show resources. I'll put up some links as well, but that's really just to understand in this new environment what you can do.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much again. Another great show, great guests here. I want to thank, of course, the big dog Bennett Kelly for being with us today, and also the ClickFather, our executive producer. Thanks for sharing your audience with me as well, and broadcasting from the campus of UNLV here in Las Vegas. I'm the big Fabu, John Fondy, thanking you for your time. And don't forget that you can check us out on our website, internettraffickings.com, and also don't forget our podcast. Give us those 5 stars and say thanks. So on behalf of all of us, to all of you out there, it's been a great show, and we'll see you on the next Internet Traffic Kings.